Welcome, everybody, to the Unlocked Life podcast. It has been quite a while. It's all within this year, but it feels like a long, long time since I've released an episode. And honestly, whenever I have been thinking about doing it, I've been putting it off for a long time. But there's been something recently that has come up around needing to do it or this impulse to begin a conversation again. And I think when I look back to the first season of the podcast, a huge part of it was around wanting to provide information and value. Those were the big things that were in my mind. How can I make this valuable for anybody who listens, but also information? And I think as a person, I have definitely moved away from consuming so much information to now being in a phase of actually wanting to let that integrate and not actually having as much capacity to take on new stuff. And I definitely honor that phase of reading more and watching more webinars and masterclasses and listening to podcasts. And that's what I needed at the time. I'd say definitely for health, definitely within my own business with the women that I worked with. I needed to be equipped with that information to like make a framework for these people. But now what I feel like is we maybe hit a stage where we're like, I've taken on as much as I can for this phase. I don't have any more space. And I don't really have as much motivation to like be consistently learning as much and applying and testing and experimenting. And I think I see this with conversations that I have with friends and conversations with the women that are in my spaces, whether it's the group programs or whether it's one-to-one clients. I think we've hit a point where we're kind of saturated with information. People are consuming less. And maybe you notice this as well. I used to listen to so many podcasts like per week, and I love that. But now I just don't feel like I have the energetic space for that anymore. I don't feel like I have as much space to watch things. I don't think I have as much space to try out new protocols or new routines or in short, I just feel like this yearning for things to get more simple. And as I say, I think that this is a pattern that we're maybe all moving through is away from consumption, away from maybe the overwhelm of thinking, oh, I should be doing this better, or I should be doing more of this, or maybe this will fix it, or this, or this, or this, to this deep craving for simplicity in our lives. And for me, how that has shown up over this year is this craving for space. And it's not just physical space, although this was the first year that I actually started living on my own, which is quite coincidental. But I would say it's not just physical space that we're looking for, it's also mental space and energetic space. And what I mean by that, I think space represents freedom for us. So whenever I thought about what did I want to have this conversation on, how did I want to take season two or whatever this collection of conversations or episodes that are coming now with the Unlock podcast, it really didn't feel like okay, I want to hit people with more information. I think it's all there. Go back and listen to different episodes. There's so many different episodes on light, on emotions, on probably food and nutrition. And there's so much out there for us online, on social media, in books. But I think what we're moving toward now is this deeper period of integration in our lives and like stripping things back and letting things get more simple. And I suppose whenever we want things to get more simple, what we need to do is look at, well, what are the things that are really important to me now? What are the things that need to stay in my life? And what are the things that probably need to go? Or things that I'm just ready to let go of, that we're ready to let go of. And this year, many of you who are listening will know the energetics of this year is the year of the snake. And what that has meant, probably a lot of intensity, a lot of big emotions, a lot of waves. I know for myself, it's probably the most intense year of seeing my patterns or seeing the way I've been doing things in life for the first time, even in relationships, entering into a relationship for the first time in a long time and sort of seeing my attachment patterns, the way I showed up, sometimes on these days, the way I showed up on those days, seeing it with friendships, my role, what was my role, what did I believe my role was, or what made me valuable as a friend. And yeah, just seeing in life and in work, what were the patterns that were kind of running in the background. It's been a big year of a lot of, yeah, harsh sayings. And I say all this, I want to share all this with you because I think a lot of the times we're actually all collectively moving through this, but maybe you're not having these sorts of conversations with people, or maybe you want to have these types of conversations, but the sort of dynamics within your friendships or within your family or your partnership, you feel like this would be weird or this is too much for them. And that's okay. Hopefully, you find spaces like this, you find community, you find friendships who sort of nurture this part of you that wants to reflect and wants to think back and wants to talk about the energetics of the year. But definitely, this year has been intense. And I didn't actually really know it was the year of the snake until I would say halfway through the year. And of course, until everything started to feel really intense. Now, I say really intense. It was nothing, thank God, that I haven't been able to manage. And I know the women that I worked with, many of them have gone through much deeper rebirths, much deeper kind of rock bottoms, crashes, stripping away of old beliefs and old identities, and then like rebirthing into this more, I suppose, more mature, like emotionally more evolved version of themselves. And that's not to say that who they were wasn't mature or wasn't evolved. But what I mean by that is that parts of wounding or shadow or like younger parts of them, of their soul, if you want to talk about it in those terms, got the healing from them, from their parent self, their higher self that they needed, and have now sort of like moved into a lighter, more, yeah, more ready, more evolved version. And it's been really, really cool to see a lot of people do that within this year of the snake. So I'm curious for you, have you noticed either things, places, people, even objects, um, or beliefs about yourself fall away this year? And maybe it took a really hard lesson or a really hard dynamic with a person, with work, with career for that to actually fall away. Or maybe it just dropped off overnight. And you're like, huh, it's funny the way I don't do that sort of thing anymore. This is all the shedding, all the energetics that is happening this year. And as I say, for me, a lot of it was coming up around how I relate to other people and my beliefs around what makes me worthy, either in relationship or in friendship or in family dynamics. And sometimes I think that we need to meet these people, be in the new relationship, or go deeper into the friendships for these little wounds or little patterns that have probably been lurking around since you were young, for them to actually have the opportunity to show themselves. And that was really hard. I'll say in relationship for me, what I had never really realized was this, on one sense, a flip flop between like anxious attachment sometimes, wondering, is this going to last? Am I good enough? Do I need to do more? Are they attracted to me? Maybe I should be doing this instead. And this sort of like low level panic around things not feeling safe or trusting that I'm going to be okay either way. So this like really clenchy grabbing on energy. And that was a kind of, that was not nice to me because I think having done so many years not being in some sort of deeper committed relationship, I haven't really had to like meet that version of myself in a long time. Um, and I think whenever you are single or, you're doing life predominantly looking after yourself, doing your own thing, that's those were the years where I was really going into me, myself, and I, and what did I want, my purpose, changing out of teaching, moving into this new career, learning skills, getting trained up, and just feeling really excited about life and about where I was going and where I was headed and who I could help and what I had this vision for what I was doing really. And the relationship dynamic for me did not come into that picture. And I think there was a comfort and a safety in that. And so whenever I entered into this new dynamic, it was like this really unfamiliar feeling of, I suppose, unsafety. And that wasn't to say that at that time the relationship didn't feel safe. It was me having to give up like hyper independence and not just have to look after myself and also not have to not worry about something that was important to me working out or not. I think over the last few years, that's just never been in my mind. And there's a lot of probably control in that too, of like, I'm good, everything's under control. And then moving into something that felt out of control in a really beautiful way, because whenever there's two people, it's like, well, you don't know what's going to happen. And then I was also, as time went on, started to meet this wound or this block in me that came from that control or that hyper dependence. And it was this like avoidant nature. And under the avoidance, it's more this fear of loss, either fear of loss that you're going to lose this new thing. So, like, you don't want to get too attached or too close. But also, there was a fear of loss of my own life and my own structure and my own time. And really, where that experience led me was like, oh, I definitely had work to do around vocalizing what I needed and my own boundaries. And I think why entering into a relationship that felt important and felt connected to me, because I hadn't really developed that skill of my needs are just as important, and here's how I say them, and here's how I tell people what I need, and here's how I tell people what I'm feeling. Whenever that skill wasn't developed in me, it then, of course, made me feel like there was unsafe or unsafety in being in a close relationship. And whenever I learned more about how do I bring boundaries into this and how do I actually express myself, everything started to feel safer and more grounded and calmer and better. That was just a little chunk for me of 2025, but it was a big chunk. Another big chunk was looking at how I worked. So, any of you who have been in my space, potentially it was as a kinesiology client in the last few years, you'll know that things have changed a lot and very rapidly. And 2025 was a big year of change around work because it has been lots of trial and error, lots of, again, yearning for space and freedom. So, a big part of for me was how can I work with people in person, but also how can I allow myself to still do what I love to do, but not be fixed to the one place. So for the first time, I opened up an online group program, the Mastermind. I did a 3 month smaller group program called Nourish to Flourish first and loved it so much and got so much, I suppose, confidence from that because I was really seeing for the first time, like, this works and this is deep and connective, even when it's not in person. And I have the skills and I have the desire to do this. So that was huge. That was around springtime. And then that really moved me into much deeper holding, which was the Unlocked Mastermind, the very first round of that. And that was massive because that was the first time I was moving through half a year, 6 months within a group of 10 women, and we were all connected together. And now that I think back to this, it was probably the experience that I really wanted, and something that I've done a program with Ria and Brenda, and that was so transformative for me. And I think looking back, that was probably a huge inspiration of why I wanted to do this 6-month program for these women. And as time would have it, that ended yesterday. And today is my birthday. So it's a big moment, a big chapter, or a big phase currently of everything sort of like wrapping up. And what I'm hoping through starting this next season of the podcast is that there's a big opening up of something different. And where that work has now led me is this, again, real craving for like even more depth and even more community and even more connection. So the current plan is in March time and springtime of 2026, I will be running the Unlock Mastermind again, but this time we're going to be having a monthly in person, like miniature retreat evening. The way the dreams and the vision around this is I want to provide such a soft, expansive, sacred place for a small collection of women every month to be together, to be in circle, to be sharing, to be showing up exactly as they are. Well, there's music, cacao, journaling, all of the stuff that just makes me feel so filled up and so light. That is what that's the dream anyway. That's the vision for what's to come. And for me, of course, to be again creating even more space in my inner world, moving through whatever new blocks, which undoubtedly there will be, um, new blocks or patterns or scenes, and knowing, okay, how do I work through this or how do I work with this? And within my work with clients and what I do for myself personally is always going back to inner child. Whenever I see patterns or I feel frustrations or stresses or I'm triggered by a situation or a person, I feel fear, I don't feel safe. It's looking back to see, okay, well, what is that emotion? What am I believing in this situation and where did that come from? So this is all the work that has been intense and lovely and beautiful over 2025, the year of the snake. And as we move into the year of the horse, which is 2026, I'm not just thinking, I'm not thinking just yet about, okay, what will that year be and what do I want it to be? Because I still feel like we're definitely still in the wrapping up phases of this year. And so if you're also feeling maybe pressure to be like, okay, what's next year? What am I going to do? But there's resistance there or there's a tiredness there, I would just honor that because it's probably not the right time. And the motivation and the clarity and the expansion will come whenever it is the right time. And on that note, actually, next year, the very first retreat of the year for me that I'm going to be running is going to be locally here, North Coast, on the 24th of January. And that is all going to be around closing out the energy of the year gone by and really gently tending to any of those patterns as blocks that came up for you. And then softly moving into the expansion of, okay, how do I want next year to feel? And I say feel and I emphasize feel because it's not what I want it to look like, because sometimes we're not meant to know what it's going to look like. Sometimes we're meant to be surprised and gifted with things that we would never have thought of. And I think a greater anchor is to think, how do I want to feel? And I just want to come back to that original word that I started off with, which is freedom. And to me feels like the word that is coming up the most in conversations that I have in myself and what I'm observing in in my community. And I think in humanity on the planet, that's a big thing that is coming up. And for any of you who follow me on Instagram or have had conversations with me, human design has been something new that has come into my life this year. And I absolutely love it. I've got so much from it. Jenna Zoe is a really super educator if you want to look into that. recommend her app or just listening to her podcasts and things are great. But one of the things that she talks a lot about is this idea of the new paradigm shift, or Richard Rudd of the Gene Keys, also connected to human design in a way. He talks about how we as a collective are all moving through this great change, and how that is showing up for us currently is this real shift in how our systems are running, how careers are changing, how things that have been around for so long are starting to collapse, and there's new ways of doing life and of doing um, systems and society. There's new things that are coming up to the fore. And I definitely see that a lot. They talk about entrepreneurship. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but how we're moving from, I guess, a lot of people working for the system or the industry, and a lot of people are now swooping into, okay, what am I working for? Like, what am I actually contributing to? What is the purpose behind this? And so many little, not little, but big and large and impactful solopreneurs and brands and companies that are really wanting to make a difference. That for me is like such a sign that things are changing. And I think as well, what I see a lot of is a lot of tiredness. I think that so many of us are feeling more and more tired by the current life that we're living. A lot of the women I work with as well talk about this greater feeling of feeling stuck. And to me, those things, stuckness, tiredness, are like the opposites of freedom. And when the tiredness or the stuckness starts to intensify, whether this is for you, whether this is for people that you know, or maybe you see this in your workplace, when people get so sick of feeling tired and so sick of feeling stuck, that is usually because they or you are right at the cusp of deciding that you don't want to do it that way anymore. So if you this year have been really feeling completely knackered, completely exhausted, whether that's just a lack of enjoyment or satisfaction in your line of work and career, maybe it's the tightness of your schedule, the pace of life that you're sprinting through. It could be relationships. It could be the type of friendships, the type of community that you have. It could even be the way you spend your time, the way you spend your weekends. It could be habits. It could be rituals. Um, it could be the way you feed yourself. It could be alcohol. It could be caffeine. All of these things are patterns that we repeat and repeat. And if there's a feeling of stuckness or fed upness or tiredness coming through for you, feel heartened in a way that that is like your soul letting you know that you can't do that anymore, that there is something that needs to go. There's something that you're ready to release. There's something that is ready to change. And I think collectively, coming back to that idea of like the great change or the new paradigm, as Jenna Zoe talks about, I feel excited because so many of us are now having conversations around like, just can't do it anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. And I think a really beautiful marker of change to come is that our tolerance is lowering. We are now less tolerant of things that we've put up with for so long. And I think a greater picture of that is potentially looking at what I want life to feel like, what I actually want to experience in this life, in my work, what I actually want to be contributing towards. Like, where do I want to be making a difference? What's the point of what I'm doing? So, yeah, big changes are happening. You've all probably, or you are probably going through your own year of the snake, whatever that is. And I hope that this opening conversation has made you feel a little bit more seen or a little bit more understood in what you're moving through, as hard as it may be. And know that there are spaces and there are communities and there are people who also want to be reflective and deep and intense like this. There is always spaces and events and things that I'll be running that go into that depth. And if you feel that stuckness and that tiredness in life, especially as we're coming toward like the end of this year, know that that is a sign that things are about to get better. And probably a sign that big change will come, or that you're going to start making big decisions or little tweaks that start to add up, but that it's all necessary as we move into this new year, the year of the horse. More momentum, more joy, faster pace. And I don't mean faster pace as in you need to work harder or work more. Faster pace in that things, feedback shows up more quicker from the universe, from God, from creator, source, whatever resonates. So whenever we step into being more of ourselves and being more authentic and choosing to let go of things that we're just doing because we feel like we should, or we're just doing because, well, they like it when I do that, or I get good feedback from people. I get, a feeling of value or worth whenever I show up in this role or I do those things for those people. The more we can let go of all of that and actually decide, like, well, if I had any choice, if I had choice to do whatever I want or be whoever I wanted to be, or just show up however I wanted to show up, what would that be? The more we ponder on that and think about that and start making small tweaks and small decisions from that place, the more feedback we're going to get back next year. And probably already, you're getting that already. The feedback that, yes, correct. This is what we want you to do. We want you to be more you, regardless of what you think other people think about that. So that's what I'm excited to do next year. Continue to peel off, remove, let go of all the things that I have been doing for years and years, or the version of myself that I thought I had to be for years and years to earn love and to be worthy and to step in more fully to actually who I want to be. And I hope that you find the courage and feel the excitement to do the same, even if it's scary, because there's a lot of joy and a lot of change and a lot of richness and new experiences waiting for you next year. So, yeah, I think that'll do. I think that's everything that was on my mind, on my heart, that I wanted to start out with. And it feels good to talk. One of the things, whenever I speak to my brother about wanting to do this season again, was like, I've nothing new to say. I don't have any like wisdom or downloads to share with people. But what I realized is that's not really my role. What I love is talking about like what is making a difference to me, what I've been experimenting with, what feels good, what hasn't worked. I just love sharing that. And I love being in conversation with people who want to go to the deeper layers of this human experience and this emotional experience. So that's probably where things will be headed. And of course, there will be lovely guests and people that have made a big difference to me filter into this podcast as well. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you have a lovely roundup of the Year of the Snake 2025. And I'm excited to see what happens for us all in 2026. Okay, bye.